Hello and welcome to Clawful Evil, Probable Claws, a show where we discuss Wildbow's most incognito work. I'm your conniving hostess, Kippos.
And I'm your very villainous hostess, Vice Versailles. In this debriefing, we're covering Chapter 4.6.
Oh boy, and what a chapter. What a way to end the arc, hey?
Yeah, we have had, because of course these chapters have been coming out week by week, we have had a lot of time with Ben. We've had a lot of time to pull apart every line, every detail. I really felt like this was a lovely way to tie the ribbon. You know, it's a send off of Ben, but really it's a send off of our critique of Ben. I would say in terms of if the theme for Tip has been Ben being on the tipping point of self-awareness, of maybe realizing that he's involved in this scenario. This is really like the moment that he tips over into maybe recognizing that he can't just stand back with the camera, and he's fully involved in this criminal unfolding where lives are on the line.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, we wish he had tipped over earlier in that idea of. I mean, okay, look, you say that. And I still don't think he does. We will get into it a bit more later, but
for full disclosure, for this episode, I am going to be as charitable to Ben as possible. I want to give this man kindness. I want to see him for his faults and his strengths, which I think gives Kippo's full license to rip into Ben as much as she pleases. I think this is my gift to everyone.
Yeah, look, I think I am pretty comfortable saying I hated Ben from about 4.1, and I hate Ben now. And basically everything that's happened has made me more sure of why I don't like him. Not any less sure about him and my feelings upon him. So that's just my perspective on the bastard that is Ben.
And frankly, I think I started from a very similar place, because I had a lot of suspicion ready for any prospective character we get. And I actually think that I've come to if not like him, forgive him a great deal. Because I do think that he is really more of a himbo than he is a bad actor.
Yeah, maybe, but I feel like if you're a himbo, you should put yourself in situations where you being a himbo can be a good thing, not in truth, destroy lives.
You know, I will preach this this like platonic vision of the himbo at any opportunity, that you have a brain of bricks, a body of steel, and a heart of gold. And Ben just kind of has a brain of bricks.
Yeah, he's one-third of the way there.
Or rather, like a stained glass window. He's probably as fragile as glass too. We certainly haven't seen him fight. And I don't think he's built for it.
I don't think he is.
But as far as his heart goes, it's very reciprocal to his surroundings. It's taking in the light of other people, and it's reflecting it back out there. So he's a question of influences.
It's somewhat in the right place, but not fully, and not that well. Yeah. So okay. So I did just want to controversy alert. So as Arc 4 has gone through, we have gotten a few comments about how we talk about Ben. I just want to say, guys, like, we're not deliberately misinterpreting the text. You know, yes, Ben does have some pushback against Natalie. Like, he does. Yeah, that's just true. But, like, generally, the way he pushes back against Natalie is, like, yes-anding her, which, obviously, we talk about a bit in this chapter. But it's, like, it's generally not no, but it's just kind of yes-anding. He never really says just you're flat wrong to her. You know, if we look at what happened in 4.5, where she was talking all about, you know, how horrible her childhood and stuff was, which is obviously horrible. And, you know, he says, oh, but you still need to prioritize Ripley, which, yes, it's true, but that's not pushing back against her. He pushes back against her after she walks away, when he says putting yourself down is not the same as putting yourself second. That's a genuine pushback against Natalie's point of view. But he doesn't give that to Natalie. He just lets her have her point of view and says, yeah, but still you should do better about Ripley, which is, it's true, but it's actually, it's not genuinely pushing back on her perspective. He just kind of lets that perspective go and lets that perspective be the primary perspective.
And it's interesting because he's basically gentle parenting Natalie. He's coming at it from a theater background, where he, like, as we learn in this chapter, he talks about his university experience, how he got close to these licensed martial people and was adjacent to them. And it is that he knows theater and improv, and I think that that's a real insight into how he functions, because if your primary education for going through the adult world is a work of theater and a work of performance, then you're going to do things that look really good. You're going to do a lot of things that sound really good, and whether you have the material ability to pull through on them and demonstrate integrity, or like put those skills down to change tact when necessary, that's not necessarily the case. What is consistent is whether or not you appear good. And I think I mentioned this to Kippos while we were setting up for this episode. The thing that has, as we've gone episode by episode, chapter by chapter, I think very often with Ben, we've gone really magnified and specific on a given line, and then scoped out to talk about something bigger. And I think a side effect of that is that you can get a overall impression of really digging into single points as though they are big, damning flaws, when Ben is a continuum of a character, and we're evidencing a canon of his existence, rather than saying that any individual points are as bad as the whole summary of our general position. Which is to say, I think we're making a little sound like a lot by putting those two conversations next to each other, or smoothly going between the two. So what I'm pleased about getting to finish up Tip is that hopefully we can draw both the small analysis and the big conversation to a conclusion.
Yeah, hopefully. Yeah. Obviously, we will talk a lot about Tip in general when we do our interrogation episode. So make sure to tune in for that one too.
Really looking forward to it. We have an excellent guest.
Yes, we have a very good guest lined up. Yeah, I'm excited. So, should we do today's chapter summary?
Of course. In 4.6, Ben welcomes in
Mitch, the mission, Mikulik.
And disguise expert Anna Wilson, where the former brags about getting ahead in the marshalling business, and the latter turns her fat suit into disguises for all four of our found family. Standard operating procedure. Natalie and Ben have one last please get therapy chat. Natalie really does try to get along with Ripley, who snarks up a storm, and they and their two new sons try to exit via public transport. Suddenly, Carson appears on the bus. Max gives Sterling a tip. Carson says things could have been different between them, and he's sorry it didn't work out. And Davies police take Natalie and Ripley into custody. As the subjective and objective lens eclipse, Ben has a panic attack while ignoring rings from Ryder.
Yeah, I mean, hell of a chapter.
Oh, golly.
Hell of a chapter.
So, last week's bold and specific predictions, I was really thinking that Ryder would get shot for trying to be heroic. And we did not see Ryder a lot this chapter.
Yeah, we both had big hopes for Ryder coming into this week. Because I thought that Ryder was going to call Mia. Well, okay, I didn't really think it, but it's my BS prediction that Ryder was going to call Mia and tell her the location, and that Ben is trying to sell them out to Davy. And obviously Ryder doesn't do that.
Well, it's unclear.
Actually,
because I think both of our predictions still have hope, because Ryder trying to call Ben would be, it would be a break of OPSEC for one, but it is assuming the two of them are able to work together still, and that he's not being hunted. It gave me the impression, at least, that as you were predicting, Ryder is not up for the working with Davy. He's here.
It's definitely possible.
Because we have this sort of palette of different para police officers in this chapter. We have Mikulik, we have Wilson, and we have Ryder. And we've seen Ryder often as someone who's deeply immature. And now we have Mikulik, who is someone who's deeply mercenary. And in a way that like he's equating sexual favors with getting paid.
And like sexual favors from like slaves that they are rescuing. So it's like, look, I'm going to talk a bit more about it later, but disgusting.
And then we have Wilson, who is a disguise specialist. So, I mean, how does she appear? She appears to be getting along really well with the kids. She appears to be very respectful of Natalie, and she appears really great. And then Natalie and Ripley are recognized despite their disguises. So Wilson is probably the PR side of that equation. And, you know, if we look at this palette, the person that is wanting to be a doler out of justice, a person who wants to like participate in the saving of people is Ryder. So I think there's still a chance that we see Ryder again and also get to maybe follow through with these predictions, but I'm still holding out hope for our big baby boy. He just seems like the sort to put himself out there to try and do good, even though he's got a really bad way of doing it. Because Ben does like the guy, like even though his sense of humor is really kind of not only just gross but very
violent.
Boys will be boys, very immature, and also quite threatening given his position. Now that he's 39, we learn. Which is very insightful, because that's not just like, oh, fresh out of university, hasn't quite adultified yet, was sort of like in the stasis period. That's someone who is a man-child. So
he's very calcified in that identity. I feel like.
I think this is what we're gonna get from Ryder, and I really think he's more consistent in that characterization than he is willing to work with Davy. But I mean, so that's going into the chapter. But another thing that really caught me off guard was that I mean, we led last analysis with, oh, I thought Mia and the team were gonna like work together, and this is the way that we got all our cast in group together. And then, oh, it looks like it's not gonna happen because Ben is gonna work for Davy. But actually, no. It looks like Carson and Max were willing to work together. Put that feeler out there to let Ben know that that's maybe still an option. And the only difference between our initial assumption of like maybe our team goes to save Ripley is that they're also now going to have to save Natalie. So I am still quite hopeful for the potential end of story full team up. I'm holding out hope for a lot of things as far as predicting where the story's going.
Yeah, look, I don't know what's going to happen there. I'm very curious though. I don't know if they will be teaming up. I don't know what Ben is going to be doing. Curious is basically the primary descriptor of how I'm feeling about this. I don't know if they'll team up. I don't know if it's going to be an Avengers Endgame thing. I haven't seen Avengers Endgame. That's a cultural touchstone for a lot of people. So
I think it's going to be an Avengers Endgame moment, and that judging that people in this community are probably also Worm fans, their knowledge of superhero media is probably quite high. So my brain has just gone off on an entire tangent about asking people what superheroes the team could be if like Max is a shoo-in for Captain America or such.
We'll hold on to that discussion question for maybe next arc.
There's a nugget for later smelting. But before we get into the beat by beat and go chronologically, one other thing that I wanted to note is that Natalie listens. She really does try.
She does a bit.
Here's the thing. I would not expect her to succeed on first attempt.
No.
And
That's
I
right.
wouldn't expect her to be good at it at first attempt. But the fact that immediately she finds a way to at least make Ripley not feel like she's in living hell.
Yeah.
And that her method is by self-deprecating, and like beating Ripley to the punchline beforehand. I genuinely think that this is the way forward. I think that that's going to really help.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it is, but
I think you can work on self-esteem. And I think that you can go to a therapy appointment and you can say, my problem is that my sense of humor is really targeting myself, and I don't know what my values are, and I don't know what I stand for. But if you go into that room and there are a lot of solutions in your life, and you can, like, there's a lot of actionable things. Like, for example, you are getting along well with your daughter. You just don't need to do self-deprecating humor anymore. Suddenly therapy is functional. So if, like, Natalie's problem has been she just really needs to save Ripley, and that's stopped her from doing personal growth. Here is, in my mind, a tangible step toward like a actual viable path where she grows and heals as a person. And I would be a lot happier with Ripley and Natalie, like Ripley going up in Natalie's care, if knowing that Natalie can heal, as opposed to going to be staying in this extremely agonized state.
Yeah, look, I just don't think that this is the way forward. I don't think this is going to really help all that much. And we kind of see that, like, even though Ripley does, like, smile a little bit at it, like, she still orders, like, directly after this is when she orders those books that let Mia and Carson know that she wants to get out. Like, you know, that, yeah.
Well, yeah, because it's not like the rest of the experience went anywhere.
Yeah, but it's just like, I don't know. I just feel like it's, I don't know. I feel like in Ripley's situation, I would be more frustrated than, happy, I guess.
Well, yeah. I mean, this situation has been awful for Ripley.
Yes.
So in aggregate, what I'm trying to get at is not that Ripley should have immediately turned tail and gone, oh, my mother can learn. I guess I do like her. But certainly what Carson puts forward, that maybe there is a future where they all work together, and Ripley, like the right thing for Ripley, which involves all of these people that otherwise could not get along, is physically possible. I think that if Natalie can eventually, like, even if it takes 2 days of input, even if it takes like a self-deprecating first and then growing out of that, if that is possible, then suddenly Carson's hypothetical becomes quite achievable. And whatever the right thing for Ripley is becomes quite achievable. Now, the right thing for her in the moment is getting the hell out of here. And she acts on that, and I think that was the absolutely right move. But as we step into Beat by Beat, this is to point two. We have this Ripley quote: "I read at the same level as a first-year college student," Ripley said with a pride that made her sound a lot like the 11-year-old she was.
Yeah, I mean, that, I remember being that age. I remember being that age and having a similar thought.
I love that this is true, and it's also probably how she managed to get the signaling to happen.
Yeah.
Because she opened up her book selection to literally any book that she'd heard of.
It's just like, I don't know. Look, yeah, having been that kid, being that 11-year-old with like the super high reading comprehension, it's like, yeah, you have that like that really big head around it, and it's so adorable. Yeah, I related to Ripley really hard during that little section, and it's so cute. It's so 11-year-old. Yeah, and with more Beat by Beat, like, there's this moment like right near the start, with I am probably gonna fuck up this guy's name, which I guess is why.
I looked up a pronunciation. Which is Mikulik.
Mikulik. Okay.
But I've also known a Mikhailik.
Right.
So I think Mikhailik is spelled with an A. Okay. So I'm working with Mikulik because that's what I just checked up, and if that's wrong, then it's wrong.
All right, I'm happy to go with Mikulik. So like talking about Mikulik having like baggy jacket on, I think, to conceal the guns he wore. And it's like, fucking guns plural? Like, these guys all think they're fucking action heroes. Nobody, you'd never need guns plural unless you're in the fucking Matrix, you know, and you're in the first Matrix film and you want 500 guns rather than one gun with a bunch of fucking ammunition. Like, it's insane. There's no...
It's an interesting use of unreliable narrator, because of course Ben has no reason to divulge to us audience that Mikulik has dozens of additional hands, which of course is a very normal thing for people to have in this century.
Yeah, look, it's just so ridiculous. Like, in my head, he has 2 pistols and he likes to hold them both at the same time and shoot them both at the same time because he's 12 at heart and he thinks he's really cool and playing Call of Duty. Like, yeah, I don't know. Like, you don't need to conceal multiple guns on your person. That's wild. There's no, yeah.
And like, are they really concealed if you have multiple of them?
Yeah,
he looks like a giant man who would carry multiple guns. His body is moving as though he's carrying multiple guns. It's not really concealed carry at that moment, but
like, at least Ryder seems to have one gun on him at any given time, rather than 2 or 3 guns on him at any given time, because it's nonsense otherwise. You know, like, I don't know. It's just ridiculous. It's so action movie. Yeah.
And I like that pretty immediately we get an understanding that Mikulik is not, Mikulik is really precisely the problem with this licensed martial machine. There's this quote,
someone needs to get some money together and hire us then.
It's so...
like, what the fuck?
Yeah, it's so capitalism. It's like... And even, like, later on, Ben dives into, like, how much money these people made, like, the fact that they were making, like, you know...
5-6 figures.
6-7 figures, actually, earlier on, dropping down to about half. So, like, you know, this is when he's saying that even kind of doing it okayly at the start, you know, you're earning 200,000 to 300,000, and now you're maybe earning half that. So it's like $100,000 to $150,000 a fucking year is a lot of money, you know? Like,
and it's coming probably not from the people that have nothing to give.
Yeah, it's not coming from the fucking slaves who can't afford to be fucking freed because they're slaves. It's coming from the people that own slaves. Like, that's who's paying you. It's the people that own slaves, you know? Or it's like huge groups of people trying to put all their money together. But like, apart from that, it's the people with money. It's the slave owners that are paying you. Like, oh, I don't know. Like, words can't accurately describe how horrified I am by this entire field.
How to connect this together. So obviously, if hundreds upon hundreds of people providing what they can spare to purchase a single enforcement of the law have about as much purchasing power as one person who wants something specifically done and they already have a lot of money, that's no longer a democracy. But the thing that really bothers me is that these two step into the room, right? And there's a 5-year-old and there's an 11-year-old, and they're trying to get them out of a terrible situation. And they just start talking about all this. Like they just
in front of the 5-year-old especially.
Yeah, and like Mikulik is bragging about like sexual favors, and he's bragging about how much even there's this line we've already read of like getting money together. But they do talk about indentured servitude and slavery, and it's like a PSA. It's like a watch out, kids. This might happen to you. Because, you know, this is a nightmare scenario, and why not make it worse? But the thing that is getting to me about it is that these two step into the room, and immediately they are justifying their behavior. It's very defensive in that quality of like, why are there armed men, paramilitary people on this job? Why are they here? Well, let them explain themselves. They're very keen to. They're volunteering this information right away and bragging about it. They're proud of it. And it's what like Ben divulges that Nikolic is hard in on the mission.
Yeah.
That this is his entire life is making sure that this job works. And that's terrifying because it's the kind of attitude that someone would give to a tech startup. It's how someone would talk about AI being the next big thing. And it's awful. It's really awful. So it's no surprise when these guys end up the villain, and it's no surprise that Natalie notices that they're the villains before Ben does. And what's interesting in this is that Ben is, he's observing all of these strange creatures he's even welcomed them in, like he gets them up through the elevator. He's doing a lot of introspection, like running over in his head, like how he got to know these people, like why he feels the way he does about them. He doesn't really talk about that kind of stuff in front of them because, again, we have to remember, like we had that whole discussion about Eva, that this kind of paramilitary, these police officers would be the sort of people that would target someone like Ben under, this is the kind of place where people that are very racist and very power hungry and like domestic abusers all thrive. Like we have that initial statistic from ages back of like the self-reported domestic abusers in the police force. These are awful people. So he doesn't divulge any of this information, and he enables them and lets them into the safe place. And as all of this this is happening, there's the conversation between Natalie and Ripley, where Natalie is bungling it. She's explaining that she's bungling it, and Ripley is having a absolute meltdown because if you're 11 and someone's bungling it this bad, you should have a meltdown. That's
right. Pretty reasonable.
And this is a really high tension moment, and Ben pipes up in it to say, "I deleted the recording of you, and that it didn't feel right to keep it." My dear friend has me reading a lot of Jane Austen recently, and I swear this is relevant. I've recently started Mansfield Park, where there's this character, Mrs. Norris, and my first thought when reading her was that she seems a lot like Ben, in that a general critique of Ben would be that he cares about appearances and does not follow through with integrity. So Mrs. Norris freely moves about the setting to basically steal credit for anything she can. She wants the appearance of being very useful. She wants the appearance of being very righteous. And then whenever put on the spot to pull through on that, for example, she invites a niece to live with them and then does nothing to help raise her. She invites her in to get the social credit of being the person that invites her in, and then does none of the social work of then raising that niece. And so there's a analysis of Ben where you say basically that he wants the social credit of having recorded and investigated and studied and put together the story. And he wants to put the story out there so he gets the social credit. But in questions of social labor, of maybe pushing back on whether someone gets punished in a certain way, or whether military force is necessary, or whether the simple option is actually the right one, or whether he was going to do something that might not pay him well. Those are all the things that he fails on. He lacks that pull through integrity to, for example, investigate for Eva. And I think that as all there's this huge amount of needing of that integrity, or really feeling that he is letting down those opportunities. We have this eventual end of he really believes himself to be the objective observer, and yet he divulges to Natalie that it didn't feel right to keep it. And there's no internal thoughts about why, if we had that question of, is Ben truly prioritizing selfishly prioritizing the documentary? It could not feel right to keep it exclusively so that he can, because he didn't think it was good cinema. And divulging it now that it didn't feel right to keep it without elaborating lets the idea that he's supporting Natalie go unchallenged. And Natalie can go, oh, that's sweet of you. Did you do that to protect my privacy? And Ben can go, yeah, sure, and not necessarily explain himself. But the flip side of that, and the thing that I think toward the end we are really made to believe, is that Ben is realizing that there is a real guilt and shame for his lack of action, his inaction in observing all these things. And deleting that footage was one of the ways that gathering guilt and shame has expressed itself. It just didn't feel right. He felt sick to have that confession ready. And I think that gives us a bit of hope for Ben. That it is kind of strange that in a conversation between Natalie and Ripley about how Ripley's being treated and how Natalie's been through trauma, the thing that he has to divulge is that, oh, I don't have that recording anymore. As though that story couldn't be told again, as though it's his single element. He doesn't. It's a reactive reply. Even then, that sort of brings himself into the conversation. That's very much about two other people. But I think there is burgeoning out from just seeing all of this tension worsen and agitate a genuine remorse for his behavior, and this is one of the places that it surfaces.
I mean, I hope so.
It could be good. It could be good.
I don't know if I agree that there is that remorse for how he's gone about things. I think, and I was thinking about this a little earlier. We get this with this chat with Ben where he talks about, when he's talking to Natalie through the door as she's going in there to cry, basically. When he says at the end, I don't know how many more of these discussions I have in me. This might be the last one. And I've mapped that in my head to Mia, and her, we just need to leave the city. We need to leave Camrose. Because I don't think Mia was ever going to leave Camrose, really, before, everything that happened where they got kidnapped. And I don't actually think Ben would have ever walked away from Natalie. I think that's an empty threat that he believes. I think he's saying it. He just keeps on saying it to Natalie that if you don't stop fucking up, I will leave. And I don't think he ever would. I think he doesn't have it in him to walk away from the situation.
But you know, I think that's closer to a good thing to do than it is closer to a bad thing to do. If you want to be an objective person, if you want to be a cold analyst, then the right thing to do would be to leave. And that's why he's maintaining it, because he believes that he is that objective person.
Yeah.
The fact that he's wrong, the fact that he is wrong, and the fact that he does care about how the story goes, and about whether Natalie is okay by the end of it. Yeah. That fact, I think, is more to his credit than against it. It's against his self-image. But it's him legitimately not realizing that he's so good a person.
I don't know about so good a person. Maybe that good of a person, but
that's the sort of person that cares enough to stand by someone even when it's hard.
Yeah.
In the same way that Mia would have loved to be the cold analyst that could just leave Camrose because it's not safe, which she should have done on day 2 of the story.
Yes.
The moment in 1.2 where she finds that information.
Yeah.
But she's never going to do that to Ripley because that would require getting Ripley away from her friends, and the reason that she is doing things, the claw that she is reaching out, is giving Ripley a happy childhood.
Yeah, I'm not just Ripley, but it's giving her kids happiness. Yeah.
Yeah. However, she acquires those kids.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Speaking of those kids.
Yeah, speaking of, it's a great segue. So we have disguising Ripley as a boy, which is just so fun.
It happens off screen.
It does, yes.
And the fact that must mean that Ripley went to Wilson. What if I was disguised as a boy?
Yeah.
Just an idea, just a suggestion.
It's very gendered.
I hope it was her idea, because if it is, that's really sweet.
Yeah.
If it isn't, then
I think that's fine too. if it isn't, but
well, it could be fine. It could also really ruin gender experimentation for Rip for quite a while.
True. You don't want to
due
tie
to
that shit into
associations.
such traumatic stuff.
And it's a real shame that she doesn't get to pass because and immediately gets clocked by the police. And that's tough.
Yeah,
like,
I think the last people you want to be clocked by is the fucking police. Let's be honest. Yeah. Jesus.
Well,
Christ.
not just the police, the Cavalcanti police, the cavalry.
Yeah.
The worst people.
Yeah.
And we'll maybe we'll get to hear from Ripley about how she feels about that and whether it was what she was looking for, and maybe that will be. I would love an epilogue where you get to flash forward and hear about Rip. But there's this quote from poor Natalie. If you'd like to read it out.
Yeah, so this is on the phone to Sean, which is, at this point, all we do is listen, obey, and hope that the people helping us are better than the people who want to hurt us. And it's like, Natalie, sweetheart, oh God. It hurts because, Ben's thinking about telling her, and he decides not to because the people who are helping them are not better than the people who want to hurt them. They are worse. Despite what Ben thought last chapter, where... I think it was last chapter or the chapter before when he decided that maybe the monster, on the other side. Maybe the monster
is Mia.
Yeah, maybe the monster, maybe she's more of a monster than Davy. And I mean, no, she's not. And Natalie doesn't even get to know that. She's just been told that we're bringing in more help. And so she's like, oh, thank God, more help. And then the help is sketchy and skeevy, which they are. But she doesn't get to be like, oh God, these people are working for the organized crime people that want to take away Ripley and torso her.
Well, to put it in the terms that she puts forward, the people helping us better than the people who want to hurt us when they are the same people.
Yeah, they're the same people.
And those three words: listen, obey, and hope.
Yeah.
So Natalie has demonstrated the ability to listen and obey. And she has heard Ben and put his input to action, and she has lived off of hope for decades. And it's heartbreaking to have those central aspects lined up. And yes, someone can clock me as having read Practical Guide to Evil. Listen, obey, and hope are to have someone's whole identity be that reactive, to only really have an idea of where you might like to be and draw strength from that, to be attentive to the world and then immediately succumb to it and react to it. That's all she can do, or all she thinks she can do. And if there's brutal. Anything that comes from Natalie's story and from Ben's story, I hope it's something besides listening and obeying and hoping. Because there's that old phrase of evil triumphs when good men do nothing. It's they have become purely reactionary, purely passive, and through that, there's no way for Natalie to have saved herself from this position, because she reaches out to Sean, she reaches out to Ben. She is trying to get input that will help her, and those same people are also passive and reach out for input to help them, and eventually the proactive evils of the world just get to take over. And I mean, if there's a central insight to draw it out from that to the rest of Claw, it is the thing they shouldn't have done was not listen, obey, and hope. The thing they should have done was run. Because they were in danger. I need to get out of there.
Yeah. Now, speaking of being in danger from people around you, we have
fucking Mike.
Yeah,
Mikulik.
And again, we alluded to it a little earlier, but saying that the slaves that you rescue give you blowjobs after you rescue them, it's not good, dude. Jesus fucking Christ! The power imbalance, the fact that it sounds like
Ben.
It sounds
Ben
like rape.
Earlier,
it sounds like he's raping them. You
can't really have consent in that kind of scenario.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, like Ben talked
So-
about it like in the previous chapter about like power imbalances and stuff. And like that's it's such a
a point for personal integrity for Ben, but the only way that he's able to understand what Miklik has said is to hope that he's lying.
Yeah, like he doesn't even say, like, he doesn't take a moment to think or say like, oh god, these people are monsters. You know, he just kind of says, oh, sorry, I've got the quote here. It might be trying to talk big and sound big. And it's like, don't do that. Listen to what people say when they fucking say it. If that's what he's saying, that's probably the truth. There's no reason to automatically assume that he's lying. It's more, you know, you're going to be more accurate by automatically assuming he's telling the truth. And don't try and like then immediately downplay it. Like it's such a man thing to do, honestly, to immediately downplay it to the woman and say it's not that big of a deal. He's probably joking, yada yada. When like she is like very clearly has her hackles raised about this because it's fucked up. It's horrible. Like
and Natalie has been attentive to this kind of thing for her whole life because she's been turned into a victim before. And if there's so Ben has enough integrity to not put Natalie in that position, but he does not have enough integrity to stop someone else from getting away with that kind of thing.
Yeah,
because he is a reporter. He could report on this sort of thing. It reminds
he could do anything. You know,
if like for one, you could listen to Natalie and act on it immediately, not just volunteer an alternative.
Yeah, don't make excuses for someone, especially someone you don't even know. Like,
what has Mikalik done to deserve this sort of treatment?
Yeah,
nothing good. And eventually something very bad. But the thing that catches me is that if Wildbow is using Claw as a sort of close dystopia, something if things continue down the tracks they're on, then Ben is the media.
Yeah, he is.
Ben is massively about the lens of understanding, and things like not putting the camera on Eva for too long because that might do more harm than good, but also it wouldn't make him any money, are informative for wider things that he represents, the institution of media. And the thing that jumps out to me in terms of a practical, real thing is that there are now interviews, and even at like big summits, there are, you can find it relatively easily, of recordings of CEOs and like big investors and billionaires in the fossil fuels industry, talking about how they have funded anti-science campaigns and disinformation campaigns. And it's well known that, like Meta has been actively like deleting accounts and shadow banning people for reporting, like we'll call it sensitive content, but, direct reporting of real facts as they happen in wars around the planet. And the thing that I think happens is what Ben does here, of just listening and hope together say that there are alternatives, that this might not be the truth, that there might be other possibilities. And we touched on it as conspiracy theory sort of thinking, of like, he looks at Mia, he gets all the facts, and he tries to look beyond the facts, and all he can do is exaggerate her and turn her into a bigger enemy than she is. And all he can do is downplay the Cavalcantis, because he is an investigator and he believes that all he can do is investigate. All he can do is get more information and put it out there, because the people that act on information aren't him. So his first instinct to being told something that is true, possibly very dangerous, and might have terrible implications for the facts that are already in play, is to volunteer an alternative. Like, I might be trying to talk big and sound big. And that is passivity and hope winning out for the status quo. And it hurts for Natalie, but she's ready for it because it happens, and it's happened every other time this has happened in her life. Where she has volunteered this sort of information that someone is dangerous or is bragging about being dangerous, or is done, like, admitting even to a crime, and it gets rationalized away. And this is the point where this is, I would say, Ben's like final error. Because it's not long after this that he rushes through the mall and the cavalry appear, and the conversation with Carson and Max happens.
Just such a good conversation. Like
it's
really powerful. Yeah, and I love seeing especially I love seeing Carson from the outside perspective again. Like,
yeah,
it's so fun.
I can put my feelings in a box.
Yeah. I love that there was emphasis on the my. It's like, I can put my feelings in a box, like implicitly, like, oh, you guys just suck because you're not like me. The way that, when he's talking, and he's just like very calmly and like with a smile, like going, no, I'm pissed off. Like big smile, zero evidence of what he was saying. Like, I want you to understand soon what I'm saying and just how much of this is your fault. And I just love, like, I can absolutely picture Carson like sitting next to Ben with a huge smile on his face, very animated, happy animated, just being like, I'm pissed off,
just a casual conversation. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
just a casual conversation on the bus. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Carson.
He's so good. And it's like, he's cutting right into Ben here. Like, this is your fault. Like, you fucking did this. And he can't internalize it. Like, after obviously, so Natalie and Ripley get taken away. So after that, then he's getting a call from Ryder and he's thinking like, why is Ryder calling me? Like, is he trying to plan? Is he calling to apologize? Like, was he the one that, told the Cavalcanti? So it's like, no, Ben, you did. Like, that was the entire point of your plan, was telling the Cavalcantis. Like, don't be fucking surprised that all of the people that they brought in are working with them, not you. Like, what the fuck did you expect, Like, take ownership of your actions because, you caused this. Like,
Yeah, there's this thought that stings in his brain. Like, his like stomach is actually dropping out. Sterling is like breaking apart.
Oh, poor Sterling, fucking Christ.
For a while now, for years, he'd been the objective observer.
Oh. I hate that one. I hate it so much. I hate him so much. He's like the furthest thing from objective. Oh.
But the thing is, he's so much about this sentence is true. For a while now, for years, he'd been the observer. He mistakenly believes that he's objective.
Yeah.
He mistakenly believes that he is like the like. And we have a continuation of the naming thing where he refers to Michaelik as Michaelik despite being offered Mike. He refers to Wilson as Wilson despite being offered Anna because he thinks they're more authoritative. They think they're a higher, more objective name.
Yeah, which I did like.
And like that's consistent. He is striving for that element of the objective. But he is right that he is an observer. He could have prevented these things by doing less to divulge information, doing more OPSEC. And it's pretty funny that he asks the paramilitary people to turn off their phones, and he gets the reply SOP, standard operating procedure.
Yeah.
Because OPSEC would be standard operating procedure, and the first thing he's done is volunteered information to the most dangerous person in the room.
Yeah, and I don't know. I wouldn't even call him an observer, honestly. He has had such an active role in like tracking down Ripley and following these leads and collating these leads and being the investigator. Like, observer is not accurate to him.
Well, observer is more passive, and I think it captures something that he believes. Which is that
he definitely believes it.
But the part about the sentence that I love most is for a while now, for years. He thinks it's over. That's what gives me hope for Ben, because like he's made a real mistake here. He's put Natalie and Ripley in the clutches of the Cavalcantis because he downplayed how much the Cavalcantis were a danger. He upplayed how much Mia was a danger. His conspiracy thinking, but really more his investigative instincts became conspiracy thinking because he didn't realize that he was holding the truth in his hands. He didn't realize that he had to act on the truth, not look for more. Yeah. So he stayed passive, and he's realizing now that he has to do active things.
Yeah, I don't know how capable he is. I don't know. Well, I don't like him.
Carson sits across from him, and I love Carson. I love Carson so much.
Carson is so good in this scene.
when Carson had his flashback and we saw him when he takes his emotions out of his box, he murdered 2 people. And it was interesting because even in that moment, he felt so much rage that he felt numb. Like he was doing it before he even really realized he was doing it. Very much like Valentina, like that scene beginning on the fact that the knife is being drawn to places and not recognizing there's a person beneath the knife.
Yeah.
When rage overcomes Carson, he takes action and he's barely aware that he's even feeling it. So he says, he smiled with zero evidence of what he was saying. I'm pissed off. He's acting now in that same way where his emotion is driving him, but his execution is so clear and refined. And that he's going for the one thing he wants, which is that he compares himself to Ben. He sees something of himself in Ben. And where, there was this essence very early on where Carson was so ride or die with Mia. He immediately would just go, yep, okay. Yeah, no matter what Mia was asking, he barely had to hear any of her arguments. He just assumed that she had a good one. Or like when she was deciding to, I would say rescue Valentina. Another, like Davey would say kidnap. To
matter of perspective.
Matter of perspective. When that happened, he immediately said okay, and maybe that's because he had the context of both of us rescued quote Tyr and Tyr and Ripley, but he also is just immediately reactively listening, obeying, and hoping and accepting. So he is a different version of what Ben's passivity is, in that he is almost the counterpart where Mia sends out her observed information to Carson and like more modernly Max as well, to have them take action. Then Carson is in the same position as Natalie, who Mia is in the same position as Natalie is, and Carson is in the same position as Ben is, and that both of these women feed out information to these 2 men, and one of them takes action to listen and obeying and hoping that things will turn out for the best, and trusting that his wife knows what she's doing, whereas Ben takes action as well. He gains more information. He acts on things, and it goes really poorly. And because he continues to defer. He gives someone else the power. He gives it to Ryder. He gives it to the paramilitary, and that goes horribly sour. Whereas Carson is taking direct action for himself, for his wife. Carson is enraged by that. So he against even though it doesn't achieve anything, even though it doesn't save Ripley and Natalie, he reaches out to Ben, sits there in the coldest way. I'm joyously cold, but this is a terrifying criminal of a man. Sits down to tell Ben, I need you to recognize that you had autonomy here. Yeah. That you are why this is happening.
You made a choice here. This is your doing.
Even if it was passive, even if it was reactive, you chose to obey. You chose to listen and not these same that is Carson's rage, and he's giving Ben from one father to another a tip that it is a choice to not choose. That it is a choice to defer to someone else, and it's in a really fucked up way. It is a kind thing to do, because there's the alternative scenario where Ben and Sterling were just left adrift, and what was he going to do? Probably pick up the phone call from Ryder.
Or rush forward to
or
join.
Rush forward to get arrested as well.
Yeah.
And the truly messed up thing about this setting is that the murderer kidnapper Carson, who is sociopathic and can just take his emotions and not feel them, but will still be driven by them. So even as he appears to be objective in a way or calm in a way, he is still in a very real way a human being driven by feeling. He decides to give Ben another option, which is to work with Mia, just like Mia asked. So he's being, in a way, kind to Ben and faithful to his wife and putting himself in danger. And Carson feels like the real action hero here. And that's crazy. That's wild. Because, like, when we've had so much time to critique Ben, and Carson is so much more objectively, I would say, worthy of critique. This is a dangerous man. He somehow has managed to learn kindness. And that's wild to me. And I just want to moving on from Carson to Max. Max has a little tip too, and he gives Sterling, because he always is so good with kids. Max is. He gives Sterling a little input,
a little letter. Yeah, and I really like the way that this arc ends on the 3 kidnapping victims. Mia and Carson didn't think they had any value in a trade or as hostages. Davy Cavalcanti just didn't care. Like, that is, like, I think the second last sentence in the arc is like, oh, so good. What the fuck is Ben gonna do now? Like, what the fuck? Yeah. Like, because you kind of forget about them this arc. Like, I forgot about them this arc. Like,
they've just been chilling. What's her name? Addie
with her sliced up face. Like, damn.
Because the camera lens has not been on them. Like we have been following the documentary, or Ben's documentary. And I'd be really interested to know if, like, I haven't read 5.1 yet, because it is out at this point.
It is, yes.
I'd be really interested to know if, because, we had that speculation of, like, maybe the documentary is destroyed or he doesn't get to see it. But, Ben might still be recording. Like, we don't know. He's not aware that he's recording or not.
He does say that he records. He does say he records on his phone. Natalie and Rip being kidnapped. So he is recording. He's not recording all of it, but he is recording some of it.
If I'm recalling, is apparently against the law now. You can't record police officers anymore.
I'm not sure if
I
clocked that
in Claw. I think there was a note of that. I saw people discussing it.
Big surprise. I guess. I think that's
okay. Yeah. We'll leave that to fact check.
But that does make sense for what police would like.
I could absolutely believe that Ben's footage might get picked up to be studied in another arc when we get Ben's perspective back, but just like dry facts or something. Because I know he is in 5.1 because I got to see the little window of the first few words. And so my brain's trying to work over how that could possibly be if it doesn't just if it isn't just a break from the expected format of holding on to the perspective of whoever is in has police custody. But this final line, Davy Cavalcanti just didn't care. Mia and Carson care in their weird ways
about these trio. Yeah, they do. Like, they tried to make them comfortable. They tried to keep them safe.
They kidnapped them, but they did make a bunker.
Yeah,
there is. Yeah, and maybe the thing to articulate here is that each of these people do care. Like, Mia has cared, Carson has cared. Even as they approach it as a skill, even as empathy is challenging for them. Like in the case of Mia, she's so tired. It's such an effort to exist, and for Carson, it does not come naturally. He is a manipulator at heart, and from like Valentina, she has so many influences. She's trying to figure it out, and Ben is caring. He is an investigator. He thinks that he can do real good and make something that will theatrically be engaging and fun and put something out there. And now he realizes that he has affected the story and that he's not just been passive, or he's trying to come to terms with that because Carson has told him to his face. He's thinking about that objective observer identity. It's collapsing around him. His stomach is falling out of his body, a feeling bigger than he can feel. And it's caring. It's the fact that Natalie and Ripley are in danger and it might be his fault, and it's hard for him to reconcile with. But, you know, like, that fits all into our themes because, you know, you get the tip from Carson to Ben and tip from Max to a child again because, you know, Max is constantly just helping the next generation. But it's also Ben's tipping point as he, like, the balance is tipped into recognizing that maybe is an objective observer after all. And also the tipping point with the cavalry police as we realize that, no, it's really properly in there that any attempt to use the police for their intended purpose is just going to lead to Davy.
Yeah. Yeah, which I guess is not surprising, but yeah, it's what it is. Okay. Do we want to get into some BS predictions?
Well, yes. Of course, we have the central one. I'm putting my whole weight behind this. I really believe this. I'm blind and I need to have faith because I listened, but I'm not going to obey because I know that 5.1 has Ben in it, but I don't understand how. So my thought is that because Ripley is in custody of Davy now, that means that that's why it's going to be Dave E. That's my BS prediction.
That's a good one.
Next arc is Davy's arc.
Okay, that's a good one. I like that. My BS prediction for this week is that it's not going to be Davy's arc next time. It's going to be Ryder's. Now that's actually it's a decent prediction. So I'm going further out there. It's going to be Ryder's arc, and he's going to take Addie and the others home back to the Cavalcantes, and then he's going to use that position as being in with the Cavalcantes to go lone gunman on their asses and take them all out.
Secret Agent Ryder.
Exactly. He gets his real superhero, action film. Yeah.
And he's going to get shot in the leg.
Yeah. So that's my BS prediction.
Okay. Discussion question.
So, last week we asked,
what should you lie to children about? This one was popular.
It was pretty popular. I thought,
I think we really found something special. Because I think that we've asked a question that people really care about.
I mean, it's relevant to people, so I think that helps.
We've all been a child. We have all at some point been a child. Sleeping Beluga said that admittedly he's never had a child, and enough of a sense where lying is important. So from his perspective, it's usually wherever he feels like there could be harm that be saved. Trying to think of a child that he's recently interacted with, for examples, but he can't really. Broadly, though, in a parenting sense, there's probably a line to walk. He thinks the best answer is when it represents a clear and present danger to tell them the truth. It's a rather ambiguous phrasing, but it is ripped straight from legal frameworks, so he's kind of cheating, but I think it's a good general rule. Minimize harm, who would have thought? I agree. I think that's going to be core to what we explore here.
So I'm easily impressed. Says you should lie to children to convince them of outlandish things because their reaction is really funny when they realize they've been lied to.
So true. And this is a real priority here.
So actually my partner's mum did this to all of her children. And it has led to many hilarious interactions and a lot of good stories. So I'm on board with this one.
In a way, it is equipping people for the world because you are equipping them to believe that they've been deceived and to be curious of such. But I don't think I would put that forward instead of a rapport. But 40i2, who by the way wrote up a really thorough critique of Ben, I think even more aggressive than Kippos' stance. So if you really want to lash into the man, give that a look. Gave us the very interesting singular answer of everything is going to be all right.
Ooh, that's a pretty brutal one. That one.
Sometimes a lie that you tell yourself.
Yeah,
so
it is.
Is it a lie to tell it to someone else?
Yeah, I don't disagree with that one, but it is brutal. Sweet Manzana says, a lot of people lie to children for fun traditions like the Tooth Fairy and Santa Claus. Wait, sorry, guys, the Santa Claus isn't real? What the fuck?
No, Santa Claus is real.
Oh, okay, that's cool. They must just be lying to me.
Santa Claus does exist.
Yeah.
There is, in fact, Santa Claus.
Cool, all right. So Sweet Manzana continues and says, or in my country, the Tooth Mouse and Godchild. whoever I knew, this guy, that when he was a child, he used to hide and cover his head whenever he saw a plane in the sky until his mother asked why he did that. And apparently his dad told him that when someone used the bathroom in a plane, they drop the shit out of it immediately after flushing, and he should watch out in case it falls on top of him. So maybe not the best thing to do, but pretty funny. And I agree. I think that's fucking hilarious. I think that's worth doing.
I also think it's something that the dad believed. I am envisioning the two of the kid and the dad both ducking for cover. But yeah, Santa Claus is real. No need to worry about that.
Good.
My tollist gives us the deontological and the utilitarian answers. Deontological, you should never lie to children, and just do what I did and have non-verbal kids. Can't lie to them if you can only communicate through tone and movement. I think that my tollist doesn't do sign language. The utilitarian answer is that you should never let the truth get in the way of a good story. Tell them about Santa Claus gets easier than telling them the truth, and then having them tell their friends, who then find out that their parents are hideous monstrous liars who probably stole them from a car. That is actually how Ripley got caught at the beginning of the story. That is how Ben finally figured out. I don't know what the right answer is, but definitely has to be one of those two since they're the most popular moral philosophies. The utilitarian answer, Santa Claus is real. The deontological answer, silence.
Yeah. Although, for what it's worth, non-verbal doesn't just include, deaf or mute. So sign language is not always, a lot of the time it's non-full language capable. So sign language wouldn't necessarily help with my tallest situation.
If you can only communicate through tone and movement, yes. Okay, now, yes, the path between there. My brain jumps straight to deaf. But yes. There, of course, language is hard.
Language is hard, and there are a lot of reasons why people can't speak. I mean, a lot of the time.
I have a stammer that reappears every once in a while, and I don't think I actually spoke until quite late. I think I was a 4-year-old starter. Words being difficult, they always have been and always will be. But lies, I think, are quite easy and can be done through all sorts of ways, especially body language. Yeah. I mean, Carson definitely demonstrated that. He's pissed off. No evidence of such.
Yeah. Right. So Rip Elite says, lying to our child is something that their wife and them have been discussing, and they want to be more open. Santa isn't real, but represents the spirit of the holidays, sort of thing. When is lying appropriate? The immediate answer that springs to their mind is when there's an element of harm in not lying to the child. Granted, the only example they can really think of is the situation from 4.5. Which I think is pretty fair. I don't know, I can think of a great example of, don't touch the top of the stove. It can burn you, or it will burn you, because, kids don't know when stoves are on. You probably don't want them touching the top of a stove in general.
It makes sense to generalize. But I disagree, because Santa is real. Santa is the spirit of the holidays.
Right, of course, yeah.
Does Santa have a material body? Of course. Haven't you seen Santa in the malls?
I have, yeah.
Santa's
so glad he's still real.
Yeah. But the story goes that Santa visits and delivers presents on Christmas. That's just a story. That's the spirit of the holidays.
Right. Okay.
I don't know if it's true. I haven't seen him do it.
Right. That's fair.
Is there an element here that I would get onto? The examples in Claw for lies that maybe should not have been told. I think a great example of a lie that shouldn't be told was that Ripley and Mia were blood related. But I also don't know if Mia ever directly said to Ripley, "I am your biological mother." So you can lie by omission as well.
Things might have gone a little neater if Ripley had understood that she was, quote unquote adopted. But who the fuck knows? It's such a difficult situation.
There was something that Ripley touched on about how as we move about our analysis, there is how much can you extract the criminal actions of some of the characters and the negative actions from some of the characters to then give them further credit. And actually do the weighing up, because certain things, certainly these are murderers, you could consider that being so heavy on the scale that you can't actually lift things up. And I think often when people lie, they are trying to protect themselves from those heaviest weights that they think that someone won't be able to cope with the information that they are divulging, so they don't divulge it. I think that Mia's raising of Ripley is one of those great examples where if ever she were to tell truth about that, she probably expected it to completely ruin their relationship. So I'm really interested to see how that grows out and hear Ripley's opinion on how she did eventually learn how things came out. Dante said, wow, you're doing such a good job. You're so talented. Encouraging kids so they stay motivated and keep improving sometimes means exaggerating how well they're doing already, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. I think that's, short, sweet, and to the point. And yeah, it basically is in full agreement with my own personal answer, but we'll get to that in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Tessara Watt, and this one is very cut down because they had a couple of paragraphs.
It was good.
it was pretty thorough. It was very heavily leaning into Terry Pratchett and a lot of the stuff that he has written. So yeah. I think this actually might be a quote from Terry Pratchett, but I'm not 100% certain. So their answer is, it's important to try not to hurt people. These are some things that hurt people, so it's usually bad to do them. If you do, you might get into trouble. But lots of people have different ideas about what the right thing to do is in different circumstances. So it's important to figure out what you think. I think that's a pretty good answer. Yeah.
I think it's interesting how that runs the line of truth, because you have this big generalization. You're trying to make something small enough for a kid to understand and work with and have as an operating principle. And that's the thing, like, summary always brings that about. And when you're a kid and you have no other base knowledge, being in that position of parenting and having to divulge that knowledge, I do wonder if, like, to what degree, like, lying is even the right word when you have to not share something just yet because they're not ready.
Yeah.
Because it won't make sense. Like, isn't it lying, or is it like long-term parenting? Like, I will tell you later.
Yeah, it's hard to know.
Coblin has a story. I had a teacher who would read fantastical stories to us if they were real and talk about elves and fairies living in the school playgrounds. I think we were old enough to only half believe her, but it really stuck with me as something so kind to do for the kids, especially those who might not have had as much whimsy in their lives outside of her school, to keep their innocent curiosity aflame. It's along the lines of a Santa is real lie, which I think are really important to tell kids.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. I like that one.
And it's confusing because Santa is real.
No, Santa is real, yeah. So I don't know why they included a lie as part of that. I mean,
maybe the Coblin's just trying to demonstrate the sort of half belief effect by telling us something that we all know is true, but like putting it on that precipice.
Yeah. Okay, so Hover Demon says, the necessary and sufficient conditions, oh my god, fucking mathematician. The necessary and sufficient conditions to justify sorry, I'm a mathematician, I know this bullshit. To justify lying to a child are as follows. The lie must be in good spirits, harmless, relatively inconsequential, and feigned as truth only for the purposes of investing their interest in a shaggy dog story that might entertain them on a long drive or during other periods of tedium. And then the next dot point is the fact that you are lying should be made clear and obvious towards the end of the story when it segues naturally into an inside joke or transitions into some obvious copypasta. Such as a story about how you used to have a stutter and when you proposed to your spouse, you lost control of your emotions before she knelt down and took your hand and looked you in the eyes and said,
everybody stutters about one thing or another, but check out my message to you. As a matter of fact, don't let nothing hold you back, baby. If the Scatman can do it, then so can you. I'm the Scatman. Skibbity-bitty-bop-bop.
Thank you, Hobo Demon. It's, fucking necessary and sufficient conditions. God damn it.
It's necessary and sufficient to bring up the Scatman in any conversation about lying.
I guess.
So as for our answers.
Yes. So honestly, I think you should uplift kids with things like telling them how much you fucking love their art and their stories and like be so interested in the things they're telling you. Like let them just come to know that you're an endless font of encouragement and support for like their art and their ideas and everything. And even if it's not true, that's fine. Like you are encouraging them to be more artistic, more creative, more happy. So yeah.
I think about encouragement a lot because when you like, I think we're through a couple of these discussion answers, people put forward encouragement as a sort of lie, where you tell them that it is so good. When I would say, and this is getting into my answer, I think you can get really far without lying once. It's just a matter of phrasing and attitude. Like you can say that you can tell them like that's a tough question to answer, I don't know. And the admittedly tense, I'll tell you when you're older. And these can all serve as for building an honest rapport and hopefully an open one. And I think lying to a kid inevitably leads them to lying to you. But that said, I don't really consider storytelling a lie. You just lead with once upon a time. So Santa is real, but Santa is real in the way that Santa is real. So the thing that I'm trying to get into with the encouragement component is that if you make that out to be a lie, I think a kid can come to a point where they recognize that you were telling them that they were doing a good job, that they were talented. And then they'll think, oh, you were lying to me. In reality, I'm just another kid that is just doing another piece of art. And, there are studies that say when you, encourage a kid in their interest, they're more likely to lose interest. And I think that's because when a kid is doing something like painting and really messy stuff, like early stuff, like finger painting, like the art that no one's going to say is quote good, or it's not high art. If you say it's so good, you're making it about talent, you're making it about quality. When what matters is that they made something and it's cute, and you can center that. You can say, oh, what's that on the picture there? Or I love this blue. You can talk about what they've made, and you can engage with its existence rather than try and qualify it as a thing that has an objective quality. Why encourage them when you can engage with them?
That's fair.
And I think that the reason I started this plan with this flag, I'm not trying to say that anyone that centered encouragement necessarily is shooting children in the foot in terms of their joy. I mean to say more that one piece of advice I got through, one sort of default thing that I was told as I was growing up was that was this killer word that I hated, which is that you have potential. And when you tell a kid that they have potential, them doing anything becomes about not what they're doing, but where they will end up. And being a child becomes about becoming an adult. And the way that someone gets through 1,000 repetitions of the 10,000 kicks, the way that they become an artist or a writer is through joy. It's through excitement and pursuing something, not because they are centered on an end goal, but because they are thriving in its company. So if you make it about potential and you make it about quality, their taste, they might be able to look at something and judge it to be a 6 out of 10, a 10 out of 10, whatever. But whenever they make something, they'll be looking at it through that lens of taste, of value, of quality. And I think that just shreds it, because if you take that sort of lens and turn it on your finger paintings, they're finger paintings. They're the play of a child. They're not meant to be in a museum. They're meant to bring joy. I think there's a cross-contamination that happens there, because people think that they need to lie when what they could actually do is just take a different approach. I really want to be a mom someday. So I'm really thinking about this kind of thing all the time.
I really don't. So I do not think about this kind of thing.
But fun to be doing cool, where there's a lot of lessons on what not to do. For example, I don't think I'll be kidnapping my child. I think I'm gonna.
It's cowardice talk.
Listen, I am okay to be a coward about this. I think that if I have a kid, I want them to know that they are adopted, and for it to be legal to have adopted them. I think that makes sense to me.
That's a pretty good baseline.
I'm trying to build a rapport, Honesty is best policy. But I've also read Pale very recently, so the challenge of going through life without lying once is a lot of fun. As for this week's discussion question,
now that Ripley is in the worst possible custody, what do you think is her best possible solution? Should she stay with Natalie and visit Mia, or what do you reckon?
Obviously, that one is our default, or at least it's the one that I think is the natural one. It's restoring things to how they should be, and that it would put Ripley in Natalie's care, but also making it clear that Mia's crime, as it is, does not get solved by having Ripley in Natalie's care. The thing that I think is a priority is Ripley's health and well-being. And so I think Mia has to be involved in that in some way, because Mia knows how to parent Ripley and has a lot of rapport with her. And if she's going to build a rapport with Natalie, having a contest between the two moms is going to be awful. So my mind is definitely to that combined solution, but I think it would be really interesting for people to get into the thick of what they think the correct balance is and exactly how to make that happen. Because, of course, we've now had a full 4 arcs of people throwing Ripley around like a hot potato, trying to figure out, trying to impose their solution. So, yes, Ripley's in the worst possible custody. What do you think is the best possible solution?
Cool. All right.
With
Time for the outro.
That's our show. Check out Wildbow's Patreon at patreon.com/Wildbow. This is his bus ride. We're just smiling with malice in our hearts.
And please give us a rating and a review on the podcatcher of your choice.
If you want to chat to us about the show or follow along with live reads, check out our channel on the Doof Media Discord. Find the invite link at doofmedia.com/Discord.
Cool, and we'll catch you probably in the interrogation episode.
Bye for now.
Bye.